The NACT Spring Season Stage 3 qualifiers is going to be starting this weekend, March 2nd, and today we're going to be going over what teams we believe will make it out of the top 16 into the top 8 based on how they performed inside of the Stage 1 and Stage 2 qualifiers these previous weekends, and also a full, complete breakdown of the format for the Stage 3 qualifiers. Let me know what your guys' opinions are on these teams and who you believe will make it to the top 8 as well. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Just a little bit of a brief recap on what we've seen so far. We had 2 registration periods and 2 qualifiers. Stage 1 was an upper and a lower bracket where we got to see the first 8 teams make it into our top 16. It was 64 teams competing in a double elimination, but only 8 able to push through. The following weekend after that was the Stage 2 qualifiers where teams got to register again and another 64 competed, completing the remaining 8 of the top 16. And now here we are into the Stage 3 qualifiers. We'll be seeing 16 teams fighting it out inside of a single round robin, moving forward with only 8 progressing from this top 16. The 8 teams that do progress will move on forward into the regular season. These are the teams that we've seen make it through the Stage 1 qualifiers: Gaming Gladiators, Devious Activity, BTK, Bloodhounds, the Night Horde, Overskilled, Area 77, and Fiends. The Stage 2 qualifiers were a bit spicy as well, and these were the remaining 8 teams that made it through: New King Limitless, the Royals, Apex Predator, Legacy, What's the Problem, Above the Rest, Distinction, and Heaven's Tactic. All these teams will be fighting it out inside of a single round robin, which will be lasting for 2 days, this Saturday and Sunday, March 2nd and 3rd. And as you see, this is basically the lineup of where these teams are going to be competing at. Every team will be facing each other once, and the top 8 teams with the best record will be moving on to the regular season. I'll leave a link for this inside of the description below that you guys can check it out live as it goes on this weekend. We'll also be live as well, catching all these games, so make sure you guys tune in and show some support to your favorite teams. And here we are, the part we've all been waiting for, a complete breakdown on where we rate these teams based off their performance inside the upper and lower bracket qualifiers for Stage 1 and Stage 2. Today, we're going to be going through each team, covering the members, exactly why we place them, where we place them on today's tier list. To kick things off, we're going to be starting with the results from the Stage 1 qualifiers, and the first team on the list will be Team Fiends. As you see, they got a pretty decent roster. They've got Magic, Avery, Kahari, Uneven 012, Pro 2.0 Destroy, Mr. Moba King, and Churro. They have 4 wins, 1 loss, 80% win rate so far, 19th seed. And here are the matches and teams they win against to make it into the top 16. Fiends was the team that took down Gosu and took the world by surprise. They lost inside the winter quarterfinals to the Bloodhounds. Bloodhounds, a previous top 8 team in North America. And Fiends, a newer team on the scene. So nothing too out of the ordinary there. Definitely through time. They may have the possibility to beat them. Like we said, they beat Gosu. So you can only imagine the sky's the limit for this team. They did lose to Bloodhounds, though. They're able to beat Above the Rest, Team Gosu, Asphyxia Kings, and 3M and Valid Boys. Now, there's 2 teams in here that really kind of shine above the rest. That's going to be Gosu and Bloodhounds. I would say Above the Rest as well was a really decent team. So I would kind of give credit to that one as well. If I have to rate Team Fiends right now inside of our tier list, I'm probably going to put them maybe 7th to 8th place. Now, we will be adjusting this as we go, so they may end up getting a little higher or going a little lower, just based off all the other teams on today's list. But so far, I would give them 7th to 8th place because they beat Gosu. They lost to Bloodhounds, and I wouldn't say Bloodhounds is a top 4 team, so to lose to them is definitely going to bump them a little bit lower on the bracket. Next on our list, definitely a fan favorite, Area 77. Their current roster goes as follows: Smiling, Easy Peasy, Tarzan, Marcutie, Yureshi, Gals Cutie, Jules Cutie, and Jay. I've been a fan of this team for a while now. They competed in the NACT fall season. They've been competing in multiple NACTs throughout the years, and they've made it into the top 4 in North America and definitely have what it takes to make it again. Currently, they're sitting with 4 wins, 1 loss, and 80% win rate. They lost to BTK in the winter quarterfinals. They were able to beat No Morals, Godlike Skills, After Hours, and Area 69. Looking at the teams that they've gone against so far that are at least top competitors, I'm not really seeing too many of them. The best one that I would see that they went against was possibly No Morals and Godlike Skills that they were actually able to beat. I would say BTK, but they didn't beat them. So I wouldn't really place them in 1st or 2nd position. But to be able to take down No Morals and Godlike Skills, these are teams that made it really high inside of the brackets. And I got to at least give them credit for that. With the massive boost of Area 77 having a lot of synergy on their team, with all these players playing together for multiple years, That's definitely going to make them a lot stronger than some of these newer faces. Also, placing in top 8 last year gives me a little bit more confidence to kind of put them higher on today's bracket, and I would give them a safe 2nd through 4th place. Next on the list, we have Overskilled, a newer team on the scene. We haven't seen them make top 8 before, but they definitely have some heavy hitters. Their roster goes as follows: OS Legendary Chickmunt, Euphoria, Rencutie, Myth, E, 2 Basic for Yuri, Jordan the Nightmare, and Kev Teasy. Currently, they're sitting 4 wins, 1 loss, 80% win ratio. They lost to the Gaming Gladiators, which is projected to be the best team in North America, or at least has been the best team in our NACTs all of last year, and definitely a heavy hitter this year. They were able to catch some wins, though, during the qualifiers. They took down Above the Rest, Team Guso, and Monarchy. Like we said, they only had 4 matches, so we didn't really get to see them go against some of the best teams in North America. The best one they went against was Gaming Gladiators, and they got destroyed. Above the Rest, though, I would say is a little bit more of a challenging competitor, and they were able to take them down, so I will give them credit for that. Team Guso, though, and Monarchy, these are some of those newer echelon teams that most teams were able to blow through, so I can't really give them credit there. When it comes to Overskilled, just based off what we've seen so far, I would have to give them either a 7th through 8th place or possibly a 9th to 16th. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in the 7th to 8th spot for now, but it may actually shift a little bit lower as we progress through today's video. Like I said, these are just temporary placeholders until we have everybody on the tier list. Up next, we have the Night Horde. This is a fan favorite team. They've been on the scene in North America for a while. They're led by Tyrant. For those who don't know, he is the one that kind of organizes all the local events where people meet in person for Mobile Legends Bang Bang. He's done it in California. He's done it in, I believe, New York. And hopefully he does one in Florida so that I can go to it. But nonetheless, an amazing individual and definitely some familiar faces on their roster. You've got Tyrant, Totenak, Oh My Foe, Silly Cat, Sayori, R, and Nikoko. Now, this team has been scrimming BTK a lot. They've been sending some screenshots of their results, actually being able to beat them. So they definitely have what it takes to beat a top tier team, and they're practicing all the time. They have one of the harder routes inside of the qualifiers, though, with some of the most matches played. They have 6 wins, 1 loss, 85% win ratio, and definitely had a long way ahead of them to be able to make it into the top 16. They were able to beat the Wild Cards, Team Guso, Legacy, and Turret Camper, but they lost to the Nova Corps, beat the Vanguard, and also took down Team Ace. Now, to kind of break this down, they went against a lot of decent teams inside of the qualifiers. Wildcards was predicted to be a possible top 8 contender, definitely a top 16 contender. Team Guso, I wouldn't really put them that high on the bracket, so I can't count them. So far, they got one good team that they've faced. Legacy's Assassin Riles team, I would say they're kind of mid-level right now, but I want to see them kind of compete a little bit more. We haven't really seen them have too many victories, but they did make it into the top 16, so I guess I could slide that by and say they faced 2 pretty decent teams. Turret Campers, they didn't really make it that high for me. I wouldn't really consider them a top echelon team, but hopefully next season they can make it into the top 16, so I'm not really going to give them credit for that one. The Nova Corps, on the other hand, though, I've seen them competing all last year in all local tournaments. They did really well. And to be able to shut them down, they did really well, but they weren't able to take a victory over them. So that is going to kind of hurt them a little bit, especially up against a top contending team. Nova Corps did not make it into the top 16 either. Next up was the Vanguard, another familiar team who's been on the competitive scene for a while now, and they've been doing pretty decent. They were not able to make it into the top 16 this time around, but did make it into the top 32. But I would say they had great synergy, so I would give that another point for good teams that they've won against and been able to take down. And then to finalize it, Team Ace was the 4th team they were able to beat. Now, Team Ace, I'm a little shaky about. I thought they were going to make it into the top 16, but they had a really hard road, and they got knocked out very early in a lot of the qualifier stages. So I wouldn't really put Team Ace that high in the caliber to count them as a point. I really wish I could, but just how they performed in this NACT so far, I can't really give them too much credit for beating them because we've seen a lot of non-top 16 teams and top 8 prospects take down Team Ace so far. Similar to Area 77, the Night Horde was a previous top 8 team in North America, which will give them a little bit of a boost over other teams, and I would place them a little bit higher than that 7th to 8th position just based off that, especially if I'm going to be comparing them to Fiends and Overskilled, so I'll give them a safe 5th through 6th place. Up next on our list is the Bloodhounds. Everybody should know who they are, led by Boca Roscoe, a really big Twitch streamer and one of the most consistent teams in North America. They are a previous top 8 contender as well and definitely show some good potential. On the roster currently is Boca Roscoe, Templess, Easy Peasy, Sleeps, Ooga Booga, Serbasi, and Doxo. They've won 4 matches in a row, 100% win rate, and have not taken a single loss yet. They were able to take down Team Fiends, What's the Problem, Phoenix Ravens, and the Vanguard. It was kind of funny seeing them go up against the Vanguard. These teams have been practicing a lot together in the past. They have a long history together. and they were the first ones to go up against each other in the NACT, which was super fun to watch. Like I said, we will give them a point for beating the Vanguard, as that is a very synergized team who has had their roster for a while and competed in a lot of local events. Phoenix Ravens, I can't really give them the credit for beating them because I haven't really seen that team do too much in the competitive scene. What's the problem is definitely a heavy hitter. I've heard some great things about their team and got to catch some of their matches in the qualifiers, so I'll give them credit for being able to take them down. And then also taking down Team Fiends, which is a current top 16 team right now, the team that just took down Gosu and we covered and put inside of our bracket. And taking them down is definitely going to give them some points. So I would say so far, that's 3 good teams that they faced inside of the qualifiers, which will give them a pretty decent rating inside of the top 16. When it comes to the Bloodhounds, I think it would be safe to say possibly putting them in right before the Night Horde, doing a little bit better than them, or even probably even higher to that 2nd to 4th position. But for now, just to be safe, we're going to put them in that 5th to 6th slot. Up next is one of the most famous teams in North America, the Bloodthirsty Kings, led by Mobazane. Mobazane's been here since the birth of North America, competing and raising the banner inside of M3. Now, this is a little bit of a different roster than the typical BTK we're used to, but nonetheless, they're full of some heavy hitters and some familiar faces. They've got Nami, which is going to be one of their coaches, Basic in the gold lane, Mobazane in the jungle, Cold World running the roam position, Nicolette inside of the mid lane, Milo in the XP, and G1, which sometimes subs in for Cold World in the roam position, and also Coach Midnight, who's a caster and also coach out from the Philippines, supporting them behind the scenes. And then they've got Cardi in the background as a sub as well for the XP lane for when Milo can't make it. Currently, BTK has won 4 matches in a row, sitting at 100% win rate, and they have not lost yet. They were able to take down Area 77, Team Legacy, Dreamville, and Shade. So far, I would say they've taken down 2 pretty decent teams. The first one being Area 77, a former top 8 team in North America, and I gotta give them credit for that, as this is a really stacked team to go against, and to be able to take them out in the upper qualifiers is definitely a big statement. That's going to be 1 point for BTK. Legacy, I would also give them another one for. Like I said, Legacy is a top 16 contender, and to be able to take them down is definitely showing some promising synergy from the Bloodthirsty Kings. Dreamville, I wouldn't really put them that high on the bracket compared to the other teams, so I can't really give them a point for that. And then also Team Shade, I can't really do the same as well, as there's just not too much information on these teams, or I at least haven't seen them competing all last year in a lot of local events. And I typically see teams that kind of compete in the local events throughout the year do a little bit better than those who are newer on the scene. Now, with BTK, with the experience of Mobazane, with the international experience of the players on their board, such as Basic and Zane, I gotta give them some credit. Also Milo too. That's gonna give them a massive boost compared to other teams on this list, especially because they have not only stage presence, but IQ on an international level. With BTK, we've always seen them make it into the grand finals for every single NACT so far. So I think it's fair to say we would slot them in the grand finals as a top contender for the 1st or 2nd place. Up next, we have Devious Activity. This team is full of some heavy hitters that used to be spread across the board on multiple teams, now combining to become a super team in the making for North America. I cannot wait to see these guys perform in the round robin phase, but they are looking very promising. Currently on the roster, they've got Yato, Lord T, Kush, Mikasa, Gina, Supermelon, and Houdini. They have played in 4 matches so far and won every single one of them, sitting at 100% win rate. Currently so far, they've been able to take down the Wildcards, No Morals, Maxima, and Luminaire. Wildcards, like we said, a hot contender inside of the NACT spring season, and to be able to take them down is definitely going to give them a point. Right behind that, No Morals, I would have to say the same thing. Another predicted top team in North America, and to be able to shut them down is definitely an achievement and another point on the board. Maxima is a newer team on the scene that we haven't seen compete in many local tournaments, so I can't really give them too much credit for that one to give them a little bit of a higher boost. And I would say the same thing goes for Luminaire. Just not too much data on them inside of local tournaments to really give them the benefit of the doubt to rise them higher on that tier list. Now, with Devious Activity, like I said, they have players that have been on top 8 teams in North America and have played in the grand finals, such as Yato. They also have Kush. So I would definitely say that they're going to be a little bit higher on this roster compared to some other teams. And to be fair, I would put them pretty high just based off that. I would definitely say that 2nd to 4th position would be where I would currently slot them, just based on who's on their team and what they're capable of doing, because they've already been to that top position before. But because it's a blend of really good players who haven't really played together as a unit that much, it may hurt them compared to other teams that have a little bit more synergy. But I'd still give them the benefit of the doubt. I think it's safe to say they could sit in that 2nd to 4th position. I'd put them right behind Area 77, but I feel like it'd be a close tie. Speaking of powerhouse teams, up next is the Gaming Gladiators. This is possibly the most famous team besides BTK in North America, who held the banners for us all last year, competing in a majority of the international events. You've got Hoon, Zia, Best Player, Shark, Fried Chicken, Dez, and Pika, who is more of like their team manager behind the scenes. Currently, they played in 4 matches, sitting at 100% win rate, and have had a really easy breeze throughout this NACT spring season so far. They're able to take down Overskilled, Novacore, Turret Campers, and Accelerate. So far with the teams that they've gone against, they've had some decent competition. To be able to take down Overskilled, who is currently sitting in the top 16 position, is definitely going to give him a point in my book. Up next would be the Novacore, who, like I said, is a team that's been competing all year round in local tournaments. They did not make it to the top 16, but they definitely put on a great fight. And to be able to take them down with a breeze will definitely give them another point on the board. Turret Campers, I wouldn't say was the highest performer this NACT spring season, so I won't give him a point for that. And I would say the same thing for Accelerate, just a little newer on the scene and not really that heavy of a hitter compared to other teams so far in this NACT spring season. It's no secret, Gaming Gladiators, formerly known as TOB, has always had the best record in the NACTs, usually goes undefeated or takes like one loss here and there, and has been the most challenging team for the past year in Mobile Legends Bang Bang on the North American side of things. It's definitely safe to say with their international experience, their IQ and synergy, they have to be a top contender and sitting in that grand finals position up against BTK. But this is not too out of the ordinary. We normally see these two teams face it off, and it's a flip of a coin who kind of gets that victory. We've seen BTK take down TOB, now known as Gaming Gladiators, inside of the NACT spring season, but then we've seen it flip around and we've seen TOB take down BTK inside of the fall season. But hey, here we are in 2024, spring season's back around, and I wonder if it'll change again. I would put them a little bit higher on the list though compared to BTK and have them sit in that #1 position just because they have a little bit more synergy than some of the new additions to the BTK roster. And that'll complete the Stage 1 qualifiers for the first weekend. Now we're moving on to the Stage 2 qualifiers for the remaining top 8 teams. First on the board, we have Heaven's Tactic, a newer team on the scene. I am familiar with some of the members, though. They have Raz. He's been a major pillar in the North American community, donating a lot of money for a lot of local tournaments, increasing the prize pool, and giving teams an opportunity and a space to compete. Definitely shout out to Raz, and I wish them the best of luck in their journey. Currently on their roster, they have Raz, Riot, Kintizi, Red, Ricky, and Deity. Similar to the Night Horde, they had to face through a lot of matches to get to this top 16, with 6 wins and 1 loss, sitting at an 85% win ratio. They were able to take down Team Mass, the Vanguard, the Forgotten Ones, 7X, Velocity Esports, and Mad Presence, but fell short to Apex Predator. Team Mass is the team that took down Team Ace. They were definitely a decent competitor. I wouldn't say like top 8 contender. Didn't make it into the top 16, but they definitely had some great synergy and were able to take down some of the heavier faces in North America that I predicted were going to make it into the top 16. So I would give them a point for being able to shut them down. Another point would definitely go into taking down the Vanguard again. Like we said, just a heavy synergized composition that has been competing all throughout the local events in North America last year and almost made it into the top 16, falling short right at the end. So that would definitely be 2 points. Forgotten Ones is a team that took down BTK in the qualifiers in the NACT spring season, and they were looking pretty promising this time around. They didn't make it into the top 16 though, unfortunately, but they were definitely a great contender, so I'd give them another point for that. 7X, not really a heavy hitter. They didn't make it that far this NACT spring season, and they're a little newer on the scene, at least from what I'm familiar with. I haven't really seen them in too many local events, so I will not give them a point for that one. Same with Velocity Esports, just a newer team on the scene and not too much information to really give them a point for. Mad Presence, similar scenario, not really too much data for them, but able to take them down. Definitely kudos over to them, but I can't really give them a point for that. Apex Predator, they did lose to them, and Apex Predator is one of these more familiar teams who I've seen personally competing since the beginning of our NACTs. With all that being accounted for, I think it would be safe to say that Heaven's Tactic would be sitting in that possible 7th to 8th position, maybe even sliding down to that 9th position. Do I see them beating Overskilled or Team Fiends? That's a little bit of a rougher one. I don't think I would, because I feel like Fiends and Overskilled have beat some heavier hitters than them so far. So right now, I would probably slot Heaven's Tactic inside of that 9th to 16 position, but this may be adjusted as we push through today's tier list. Up next is Distinction, a newer team on the scene, and here's their current roster: Wasaki, Marvi, Birdie, Guts, Sid, and Kagetsuchi. Currently, they have 4 wins, 1 loss, sitting at an 80% win ratio. They lost to Apex Predator, were able to beat Lamey Top, the Royal Supreme, Skill Genius, and Young Gaddy. So far, with the teams they've gone against, they were not able to beat Apex Predator. He was a heavy hitter. That may kind of hurt them where I put them inside of this tier list, not being able to take them down. Credit to them taking down Lamey Top, though. Lamey Top was a previous top 8 team in North America, and they were almost able to make it again, but fell short at the end. Unfortunately, they didn't register in the first qualifiers, which kind of hurt them from making that top 16. That will be 1 point, though, for taking down Lamey Top. The Royal Supreme is another good team that made it pretty high on the bracket, so I'll give them credit for that one as well. Skill Genius, I'd say it's about a mediocre team. I feel like they're kind of getting decent. I wouldn't say I would give them a point, though, for beating Skill Genius. And then same for Young Gaddy, a little newer on the scene. Not really too many local tournaments that I've seen them compete in, so I would only really give them credit for 2 teams that they knocked down. In terms of Distinction's placement, it'd be very similar to Heaven's Tactic, just based on who they faced. Not really too many heavy hitters that they beat so far for me to boost them that high up on the roster, and they have some new additions to the scene that haven't really made it into the top 8 before. So I feel it'd be safe to say I'd put them right behind Heaven's Tactic in that 9 to 16 mark. Up next is Above the Rest. Currently, the roster goes as follows: Christopher, F4, Not a Catfish, Chew, Ruse, Zeke, and Hatrix. Currently, they have 6 wins, 1 loss, sitting at an 85% win ratio. They're able to take down Godlike Skills, Silent Kill, Upper Moons, Skill Genius, lost to the Royal Supreme, took down Bobo Proud, and Presumptuous CA. It's kind of similar to the Night Horde. They had a lot of matches in order to make it into the top 16, which is going to knock them off a little bit on this tier list. Being able to take down Godlike Skills, though, they are a pretty decent team, so I'll give them credit for that. Silent Kill, a little newer on the scene, so I won't give them a point for that one. Same with Upper Moons, just a little too new for me to say they're a heavy contender. Skill Genius, same thing, a little bit too newer on the scene. The Royal Supreme, a newer team on the scene, but definitely a little bit of a heavy hitter who sat higher on that bracket. Not being able to take them down is going to hurt them with how high I put them on today's tier list. Bobo Proud went a little higher than some of these other teams that I see so far and who they faced against, so I'll give them a point for that. I feel like Bobo Proud is a little safer to say that's a point for them earned. Presumptuous CA, I can't really give them a point for that as well. They just didn't do too hot inside of the qualifier, so I would really only give them 2 points, maybe even 1 if I don't count Bobo Proud. So when it comes to Above the Rest, I think it would be a similar situation to Distinction and Heaven's Tactic, definitely putting them in that 9 to 16 slot. The next team will be What's the Problem. Their current roster is Alan M, The Joker, Final Mente, Sloss, Rachel M, Blank 4780, and Papa Smurf. They have 4 wins, 1 loss, sitting at 80% win rate. They lost to the Royals, were able to beat Shadow 9, No Morals, Xanthic Rose, and Boba Proud. They don't have as many matches as some of the other teams so far, so they did a little bit better, not having 6 matches total, but 5. With that 80% win rate, only having 1 loss, it's not too bad. Losing to the Royals, though, I would probably hurt them because I wouldn't consider the Royals a top contender in North America and a little too new on the scenes, especially to take a loss to. Shadow 9, able to beat them. I've seen Shadow 9 compete in a lot of local tournaments in North America through last year, so I'll give them a point for that. That's safe to say. Same with No Morals, another heavy contender. They had Joy Boss on their team as well, and I thought they were going to actually make it all the way through, but they fell short right at the end. And to be able to take them down is definitely going to be a point. Xanthic Rose made it pretty far in the lower bracket. I wouldn't really say they're a top contender, but they're definitely a little bit better than some of the other teams on the roster. And the same thing with Boba Proud. I'd probably give them both half a point. So if I did that, I would say probably 3 points toward this team so far. But overall, for What's the Problem, if I had to give them a rating, I feel like it'd be safe to say they would be sitting again in that 9th to 16th position. I would put them ahead of Above the Rest, though, on where they would place in that 9th to 16 mark, but I can't really see them making top 8 so far. This is only predictions, though, guys. Anything is up to change. If these teams have been practicing, I'm sure they can shock the world and surprise myself. And good luck to everybody as we are going through this tier list. Next is going to be Team Legacy. Those who don't know, this is Assassin Riles' team. Assassin Riles, amazing content creator on the North American scene. He's been doing tons of videos for tutorials. When I first got into Mobile Legends, he was one of the main content creators that I actually watched on my journey to learn how to play the game. On their roster so far, they have Riles, Eloj, Kuyakin, PDR, Kuya Nash, Sakura, Jane, and Sainty. They have 4 wins, 0 losses, sitting at 100% win ratio. Now, it's kind of interesting because it says that they haven't lost, but I know they have because I watched the games that they lost. Pretty sure they got taken down by the Night Horde and BTK, but we'll kind of factor that in as we are looking at the history for the match they have. They were able to beat Godlike Skills, beat the Vanguard, took down Ethereal and Team Riz. They lost to BTK and they also lost to the Night Horde, but they were able to slide through in the final lower bracket qualifiers that passed this previous weekend. Beating Godlike Skills definitely is going to give them a point. Taking down the Vanguard as well, we'll give them another one. We talked about the Vanguard and how well they've been playing so far. Fortunately, they didn't make it to the top 16, but taking them down is definitely going to earn a point. Ethereal, a little newer on the scene for me, so I'm really not going to give them a point for that one. And the same for Team Riz. I didn't really see Team Riz do too hot with all the matches we caught with them. So I would say 2 points so far for the side of Legacy. Now, speaking of Legacy, it's interesting on the way they kind of play the game. They pulled out a Hayabusa in multiple matches inside of the NACT Spring Season Qualifiers. I'm not really sure if that's going to slide against some of the hotter teams that are in the top 8. As I feel like they'll have a possible game plan around that, because I wouldn't really consider the Hayabusa a current meta, but hey, maybe they're going to make the meta and make a statement as they progress inside of the single round robin for stage 3. So when it comes to Legacy, it's kind of hard to really put them in top 8. Do I see them beating Fiends and Overskilled? I feel like it's a possibility, but it will be a challenge. I wouldn't really say that they're higher than Overskilled or Fiends though, but I would put them right before possibly Heaven's Tactic, sitting right here in that 9th position. I feel like everybody, though, inside this 9th to 16th slot can definitely give Legacy a problem and may actually take them down in the single round robin, as I feel like that 9th to 16th position, a lot of these teams are kind of even on their skill level. The higher we go in the bracket, though, you'll start noticing bigger gaps in terms of macro, micro, and overall gameplay and IQ. Up next is going to be the Apex Predator. Currently so far on their roster is Ultra, Brian AR, Hubble, Legend, Athena, Causeway, and Tonksters. They won 4 matches in a row, 0 losses, sitting at 100% win ratio. They're able to take down Distinction, Wildcards, Team Gosu, and also Heaven's Tactic. So far with who they faced off against, I think it's fair to say that they're definitely a heavy hitter. Taking down Gosu, I would say Gosu, and they're just not as high as I would have hoped them to be, at least with being a top contender in North America. They lost to a lot of newer teams on the scene, so I really can't give them a point for that. I'd give them half a point for taking down Gosu. Taking down Heaven's Tactic, current top 16 team, but sitting in that lower 9th to 16th position, I'll give them a point for that. So I'd say 2 points so far. Able to take down the wild card, another point there, and also able to take down Distinction, which is another top 16 team as well. So this team is actually looking very promising. Like we said with Apex Predator, they've been on the scene for a while and definitely a heavy hitter. If I had to give them a slot here on today's tier list, I would say it's safe to put them right before Fiends, and that would probably drop Overskilled down to that 9th to 16th position. Following them will be the Royals. On their roster, they have James, Vader, Icy, Jatizi, Kiramoto, and Gynosaur. That's a funny name. Currently, they're sitting with 4 wins, 0 losses, 100% win ratio. They were able to take down What's the Problem, Monarchy, 7X, and also 3MS and Valid Boys. With the teams that they faced so far, What's the Problem was a little bit of a heavy hitter, so I will give them a point for that. Monarchy, 2 new on the scene to give them a point for. Same with 7X, and also same for 3MS and Valid Boys. So I wouldn't say they've had the hardest teams to kind of take down, which is going to kind of put them a little bit lower on the tier list compared to other teams who had a little bit more of a challenge this NACT spring season so far. I would put them below above the rest. They haven't had too many teams that are top placements in North America to face so far, and I feel like every team that they're going to be facing in the round robin is harder than what they've actually had so far. Last but not least is going to be New King Limitless, a newer team on the scene, and the roster goes as follows: NKL Ghost, Alita, Louis, Prof KY, Arts, 3Raz, 7, Vindictive, Sindo, Akira. Currently, they're sitting at 4 wins and a 100% win ratio, no losses. They're able to take down Mass, Upper Moons, Team Ace, and Wake. Now, taking down Mass, like I said, this is a team that took down Team Ace. Definitely a decent team inside of the NACT, but not able to make it into the top 16. So I will give them a point for being able to shut them down. Upper Moons, a little too new on the scene. I can't really give them that much credit for taking them down. They did not make top 16. Team Ace did not make top 16, but they were a heavy-hitting team. It's kind of hard for me to give them a point, though, because they just really didn't perform that well in the qualifiers like I had hoped them to. I'll give them a benefit of the doubt, though. I would say that's one of the more decent teams to be able to take down compared to some teams who didn't really have heavy competition. Wake, too new on the scene. Haven't really seen them compete in local tournaments, so I would only say 2 decent teams so far that they were able to take down for New King Limitless. That's going to put New King Limitless right above the Royals in that 9th to 16th position. I do have one additional slot on here, and that is going to be a dark horse, a team that I think may be able to slide into the top 8 position and knock one of these heavy hitters out. If there's one team that I think can do it from below, That's probably going to be overskilled as that dark horse contender to possibly take a top 8 position. So it'll be safe to say I would place them there. That is going to be the full tier breakdown, guys, from start to finish. 1st through 8th place, and then also 9th to 16, the teams that I predict getting knocked out the Stage 3 qualifiers. The NACT Stage 2 qualifiers will be starting this Saturday. We will be live, so make sure you guys tune in and catch the games with us and support your favorite teams. Let me know what you guys think about today's breakdown, though. Do you agree with the tier list, and what would you change? Who do you think will make it into the grand finals? Who do you think will be knocked out of the top 16? Who do you think will make it into the top 8? I appreciate y'all. Make sure you leave a like. Make sure you leave a subscribe if you like today's content. And as always, I can't wait to see you this weekend and in future videos. Peace.
Turn me up.